Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, what we thought was a given just a week ago already seems like it may be slipping through the cracks. Jimmy Butler, the price is going down, which means the chances of the Suns getting him might be also. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Wednesday, Game Day Wednesday. Don't forget Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button and do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA when you do to get $20 off your first purchase. Joining me as always from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this Wednesday, Ben Garcia?
8-2 over the last 10, so not too bad. Not too bad. Hold your horses though, because we have the Timberwolves tonight at this point when this will be airing, and I have a bad feeling we could come to a crashing halt once again. So let's just let's hold our breath.
We will talk
now
about this upcoming stretch of games, which is probably one of the more important ones of the season, given the stakes of the deadline and everything else. We will also talk about where the Suns could pivot if they have to pivot to other trade conversations. But first, the latest news on the saga we have been covering day by day for most of the past 2 months here between Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat, Bradley Beal, and the whole rest of the NBA. Ben, the big news of Tuesday was really from Brian Windhorst, who has been on top of a lot of this stuff. Yeah. And I'll just read you what he said. He said, Jimmy Butler is going to get traded. I really am more sure than ever that that's going to happen. The Heat are really trying to make that happen, and they have backed down on their asks to teams that they had 2 or 3 weeks ago when this whole saga really started. They're willing to do more. I think that there is really a chance now. I think more teams are going to wade in here because the price on Butler is going to be lower than just the Phoenix Suns, which is the way it had been. So, what do you think?
I mean, it just depends, right? I don't know what's going to happen with Beal. I'm not going to waver that Butler is going to be a part of the Suns. But I think Butler still has an idea of like what exactly his leverage is. It's really complicated. I do think Jimmy Butler wants to be in Phoenix. And I think he's holding out for just Phoenix. And that's kind of the point that I was trying to get to, where Beal, he's the domino that has to drop. We don't know what exactly team will take him. But now this, to me, has turned a lot like the Bradley Beal trade scenario, where I think the guy is going to get traded for like pennies now. I think it's going to be one first-round pick.
From Washington to Phoenix.
Yes, Washington to Phoenix. Bradley Beal already is going to get traded for pennies. But Jimmy Butler, I think it's going to be like a first-round pick, and whoever offers the highest second-round pick for Butler, and then of course whatever salaries it is to match it. But I still think he'll be in Phoenix. I think he will actively tell teams, if you trade for me, I will do the same thing there. And if that's the case, teams will not take him either until he knows no one's taking Bradley Beal.
Mm-hmm. There is a Beal component to this that did also come out on Tuesday, which we will talk about Monday and Tuesday. But to hang on Butler for a moment, I think that a part of where we're getting to as the price on Butler decreases, Ben, is there's kind of this group of expensive players that had all kind of been talked about within this whole saga that are Beal and Butler, and I would throw Zach LaVine in there. If you really want to get creative, maybe a Brandon Ingram, right? This De'Aaron Fox thing is kind of happening now. I actually tend to think it's not going to affect this Butler situation much at all because I don't think De'Aaron Fox is going to go to the Heat. So that sort of, cuts away any possibility that this gets part of it. But because Butler's price is now so low, because he has made it so ugly, because this has dragged on, I'm still a little skeptical how much lower it's really gotten. I think more so the Heat. I think more so the Heat are they are willing to take less, but I think that's also just maybe time and desperation. I'm just saying I don't think it's because of Butler acting up. I still don't really think that has changed a whole lot, but they are now.
Really?
Well, yeah,
feels bad now.
I guess I'll spit my point out, and then I want to ask you something on that. I just think that now teams can maybe just go get Butler if they had their eyes on Beal or Levine or Ingram or kind of one of these not loving it, but I might as well just go do it. You can now throw in a rental of Jimmy Butler as one of the options for those teams that were sort of just I have this thing I don't really love, but I want to improve my team, whatever, let's see. Well, now you could just do that and get a half season to Jimmy Butler, and even if he leaves, you're probably in an okay situation. But I guess part of my question there is, as far as his value, is just do we think that his, were there offers on the table that Miami was saying no to that now they're going to say yes to? Or were they also hung up because they were trying to play ball just with the Suns, and now they're realizing, kind of like a lot of us are, hey, maybe that's just not going to happen, so we'll listen to other offers that might not send Jimmy where he wants, which therefore mean they're worse because that team doesn't know if he'll stay. That's sort of the domino that I see is a Memphis. They wouldn't have been in on it because they knew they weren't going to keep Jimmy. But if the Suns aren't an option anymore, then Miami sort of has to listen to whatever Memphis is willing to give up just to rent out Jimmy for 6 months. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but then why would Jimmy say last week anywhere but Memphis? Because there's the idea
because
out there
I think he knew Memphis might want him, so he's
saying
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, they might want him, but they don't want to pay him. So I think it's this idea of, I think he will be more of a headache. Also, what do you think Jimmy's price is then? What do you think the Heat's lower asking price is now?
I think what you said is probably right. First and some role players.
Who would give up a first-round pick for a rental?
A lot of teams.
You think so?
First-round pick? I mean, yeah.
For a rental?
That happens all the time. Far worse players than Jimmy Butler get traded for one first-round pick as rentals.
I guess I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah,
because it seems I feel like everyone would rather use that first-round pick for a guy because most teams have the cap.
I would say it's maybe less common now than it used to be, but that definitely happens.
Well, I mean, would you rather have a Jimmy Butler for half a season or PJ Washington for the foreseeable future? That kind of player. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I go at it, where I just think some teams still might be hesitant because they think their resources might be better allocated somewhere else. So I still think he'll be here. And I still think the Suns are in the front seat. And I think that there is no way the Suns make that trade. And if they did, I'm done defending James Jones. He should be fired on the spot. There's no way they traded that 2031 pick for 3 first-round picks. Here's one.
Last year, Kelly Olynyk went for a first-round pick.
Oh, my God.
Not technically a rental, but they already want to trade him. They were basically just bringing him in for the stretch run.
Yeah, it's Kelly Olynyk. Wow. All right. Well, then I've got egg on my face.
Not a rental in the same way that he literally became a free agent, but the understanding was Toronto wanted to maximize the end of last season to see what they could be, and they went and got him.
Yeah. That is really surprising. So I still think it puts the Suns in the driver's seat, and I still think it makes teams still a little hesitant to go after Butler, especially if he's willing to make it still really ugly. I think this is posturing from a team like the Miami Heat, who are really trying to put the feet or the Suns' feet to the fire, where, hey guys, we're not getting any younger. Figure it out. The only thing that worries me is if there was a trade to be done, it feels like it should be done by now. And
Yes.
that's I mean, it's a
1000%.
month. It's a month and 2 weeks, a week of this Butler thing. Like, if there was a team, like how many times can you call the Pistons? I mean, like
Exactly.
obviously Beal has said no to potentially.
Yeah, well, let's get into that in the next segment, but I want to throw one more thing at you because I think you're right on the Jimmy side, and that's why I tend to believe that this might be headed in a different direction than Phoenix. Separately, if we just assume that there's still a chance that they could get him, does any part of how Jimmy has handled this situation, because the other part that came out is that he has now again been suspended indefinitely because he was told he was not going to start upon his return from the suspension before that, and he allegedly kind of, stormed out of the facility and made a scene of it. Does this, it's a new thing every week with this guy. Does that make you more hesitant than you maybe were when the news first broke a couple months ago?
I'm going to be honest with you. I thought you were doing a tease there because it just sounded like you were going towards that. But no,
let's get Butler out of the way. Then we'll go to Beal and some other
zero
trades.
hesitancy. Absolutely zero. What I mean, like, yes, Butler is a locker room cancer, or he is a headache, or any of this stuff. Okay, what's my option? Potentially, and I don't know what's behind door number 1 with Jimmy Butler. It could be really good, it could be really bad, and that does scare me a little bit. But I already know what's behind door number 2. I've been in it all year. A team that's not very good, not competing for a playoff spot, and they have a deficiency at the wing position, and they're kind of small. So I do see a world where the Suns are championship contenders with Jimmy Butler, even if it's 15% of me that believes that. And overwhelmingly, it's no. Like, I'm just playing the odds there. Yeah, I think it could blow up in their face, but it hasn't changed anything for me. I'd be curious to see what you had to say. Has this changed anything for you?
Yeah, I don't. If you want whatever accusations or negativity you want to throw his way, it's very clear what the pattern is. Jimmy Butler becomes this type of guy when he wants to get paid. So I have no reason to believe that this season or next season or the season after that or whatever, until he needs to get paid again. Before this, I would say Jimmy was pretty well respected and well liked in that Miami locker room. So I would think it would go back to playing nice and being positive Jimmy again as soon as he got here. If you ask me in 3 seasons, is that still true while he's maybe trying to get one last deal? Who knows? But that's where I would stand. I tend to lean the same direction as you. One more thing.
I just want to defend Jimmy really quickly here, because yes, did he probably throw a little bit of a temper tantrum? Yes, but like, I understand why he would get frustrated. This isn't, people are comparing it to Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal went to the bench and it was no big deal. Bradley Beal and the Phoenix Suns were failing. Jimmy Butler took the Heat to 2 NBA finals. Maybe show the guy a little bit of respect to give him his starting. No, I'm just saying, like,
this isn't the guy who took you to 2 finals. This is the guy who is trying everything in his power to cut himself loose from the franchise.
Listen,
they didn't bench him on opening night.
He has equity though. Bradley Beal had no equity. He has given zero playoff
the equity
wins
over the past 2 months, and then benching
that's crazy.
That's crazy. He doesn't want to be there. They literally said they're going to trade him. I mean, what kind of equity do you expect that guy to have at this point?
So the Miami Heat fan base and the organization are far more successful than the Phoenix Suns organization. I would just put myself in that position. If I had anyone here that took the Suns to 2 NBA finals, I'd probably give the guy a little bit of leeway, but that's because I have low sports self-esteem, and I'll own that. But I do defend Jimmy a little bit. I would be kind of pissed too going to the bench.
All right, a little bit of back and forth over Bradley Beal. Will he, won't he, with regard to the Bulls and other teams like that, as the Suns explore maybe other trades that include Beal but not Butler. We'll also look even further than that to what types of other trades the Suns might need to consider if this Butler thing is eventually off the table. All that next. First, today's show brought to you by the Game Time app. NFL playoffs are an unforgettable experience. The Super Bowl is even more unforgettable. That is what is on the table in the next couple of weeks. Game Time has a new feature to help you find the best value tickets at Game Time Picks, with Game Time Picks, I should say. Makes getting tickets for live events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, the best value, so you do not have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I know in the Valley we have next month, the U.S. Women's National Team is coming. A lot of great Suns home games. I think the Celtics are here toward the end of March. Even Wednesday night, if you just want to pop open Game Time while you're listening to this, check out Suns Timberwolves. That should be a fun one as well. All with Game Time Picks. The best value right up top, whether you're in an event or a city, that's what it gives you. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Ben, moving on from Jimmy Butler specifically to Bradley Beal. This week we had Fred Katz of The Athletic, who we have documented, obviously, has a relationship and has covered Bradley Beal for a very long time, dating back to the Wizards days. He reported that Beal would not sign off on a cold weather city with a losing team like the Bulls, where some people had sort of posited his relationship with Billy Donovan, his dating back to Florida, his proximity growing up to the Bulls when he was in St. Louis as a kid. Fred Katz said, no. Cross him off the list. Not happening. And then John Gambadoro here locally sort of disputed that report, but not on very specific terms, saying that it wasn't fully true. I actually caught a little bit of their radio show where he sort of said something similar, but again, not really saying which part of it is not true. It sounds to me like Gambo is saying that the Suns did not present Beal a deal, and Beal exercised his no trade clause. But I'm still not sure if he would ever be open to the Bulls. It seems like no. I am feeling more and more, and this goes hand in hand, Ben, with the Butler stuff, and my cautionary stance on that is I just don't think that none of the other 29 teams want to take this guy, at least given what the Suns have to compensate them for it. I just don't think there's a team for him.
Last year, the Bulls were willing to offload Zach LaVine for legitimately anything. Who do you think had a higher value last year at this time? Zach LaVine last year or Bradley Beal now?
I would have to remind myself, I will do that right now, of, the last season LaVine played 25 games. It was the worst season of his life from a health standpoint, except for the one I think he tore his ACL once. So it would have to be LaVine last year.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
so I would probably agree with you, but it's not like Brad Beal is always healthy, clearly, but if Zach LaVine couldn't get anything, and if you would have answered to me, because there were teams last year, the Lakers could have used someone or whatever, right? If you would have told me that Brad Beal was the same or below his value from last year, it does kind of make me think that it's going to be hard to find a suitor. Now the Suns
just to step in on that difference, the Bulls didn't trade Zach LaVine last year because they wanted to get something for Zach LaVine. The ship has sailed on the Suns getting anything for Bradley Beal. They are giving something along with Bradley Beal to get something that they want. He's just the money at this point. There's no value you're receiving for Beal.
I have started to become more worried every day about this Bradley Beal thing. I thought someone would take him. I thought there was going to be a complex trade in the works to get everyone what they need. But if I had to guess right now, and I just think push come to shove, Butler will be here, and I got to stop wavering on either side because every day it's up and down. I do feel like if there was a trade to be had, a trade would have already been done, and they've already called everyone so many times, but I think this is the potential of it's going to come down to the wire. I think a team that maybe missed out on the trade deadline trying to get picks or assets back. I don't know who that is. And they figure it out. But I do know one thing, and you and I have both been on this. There's no shot he's going to Detroit. There's no shot he's going to Chicago. It is.
I thought the Pistons might make some sense because they're not a losing team. That was the
yeah,
thing
that
in the Cats report about Chicago is he was like, if it's a bad team in a bad city, he doesn't want to go. Bad city. Chicago's a great city, but it's cold. And, got to uproot your family and everything. The Pistons are winning, and Cade's a cornerstone player. You're not going to play with Josh Giddey. So I could have seen it, but it seems like at this point it's a no. Because I agree. If that was going to happen, Beal would be a Piston already. He would have been a Piston a month ago.
I think, and this would help us understand why the it hasn't been done yet, because the Bucks are trying to find a suitor for Pat Connaughton. I think at this point it is just Milwaukee Bucks, Bradley Beal pairing or bust. That is the only one.
That is a perfect example of a team that I was kind of alluding to in the last segment, where why would they not just go get Jimmy Butler at this point? If they can just send the same package and literally just get Jimmy, because the price has gone down. And that's what actually was going around right before we hit record here from Mark Stein. He said that basically his wording was like, don't forget about the Bucks. Milwaukee can't, got to get up Connaughton, blah, blah, blah. But it says if the Bucks do find a home, packaging Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis would enable them to offer Miami two players who could seemingly boost the Heat's playoff chances to playing game after game, compared to playing game after game without Butler while he's been suspended. And I think they're probably in a similar situation where they maybe have like one pick or something to throw out there. But okay, so you had mentioned last segment too, this idea of like if the Suns, and I'll agree, the only time through this whole saga that I have been very yes that the Suns are getting Jimmy was right after that pick trade. And I agree with you. It's because it felt like, to me, if the Suns were going to make that trade, it felt like they were signaling, we got a deal. We just needed to turn one asset into three. Check, check, check. The deal's about to happen. There we go. And it didn't. So that sort of, I think, begs the question of, like, what else might be on the horizon here? We know they have this Yusuf Nurkic situation that they need to address. We've gone over the other contracts that are tradable multiple times between Grayson Allen and potentially Royce O'Neal, in addition to Tyus Jones and Monte Morris, whose money doesn't really work to anything, but you could potentially get something for them. So we talked about this a little bit in the postgame show. We kind of veered into trade talk a little bit after that win over the Clippers, Ben. But what's your top priority on the open market if in a no Jimmy world?
It's going to be really hard, as I'm having a cough attack tonight, but it's going to be really hard for me to just move on from Jimmy Butler. And it's going to be even harder if he does end up going elsewhere. But I'll just stick with, they need to upgrade the wing position. This team needs to get bigger. Even if this team somehow wins 50 games, I don't even know if that's mathematically possible, which I think it is. But let's say they win 55 games, right? They just go on a all-worldly heater. I don't have, all I care about right now is championships. And I understand that is such a far-fetched idea, and I don't think it's going to happen this year, but that's all I care about. The Suns will go to the playoffs and lose because they're too small, and defensively, they're just not good enough. And I think they'll lose early. And so I don't know who is out there that you could swap Nurkic for and add some first-round picks to him that would actually be a difference maker. I don't know if you stuck PJ Washington from last year on the Phoenix Suns this year and they still make it large run. Like they're small. Defensively, they're not very good. Offensive rebounds, it's hit or miss. This next 10 games will tell us a lot, but just a wing position. Like they got to get bigger. I mean, they won't go get a guard. Maybe they go get a center, but I don't know if there's that difference maker on the market. I just don't know if that's going to happen. Like Vucevic, that money doesn't even work, but like that doesn't scratch the itch either.
So Sam Vecini had a trade at The Athletic where he kind of threw out there that maybe back to Chicago, that the Nurkic for Patrick Williams thing that people have sort of been speculating about online for a while. The Bulls' former top 5 pick who they gave an extension to that they seem to already regret. He's been one of the worst players in the NBA this season, but is still pretty young. That the Suns might be able to do that without even sending a pick. And just the salary relief, because Patrick Williams has like 4 more seasons on his contract versus just 1 more for Nurkic, that maybe that could work straight up. I would be open to that. That is a big forward who you could at least roll the dice on. But again, back to Sam Vecenie, who also had the NBA trade deadline big board article that we referenced a while back when we did our favorite non-Butler trade target thing. I still think a Robert Williams or a Larry Nance to double down at kind of the big man position. Those are options. I still think that who am I looking at here? I don't really. He's playing for Houston, but Jayshawn Tate is on this. I think he's been a guy I've always liked. He doesn't play a ton in Houston, but he fits what the Suns kind of need. Not a power forward size guy, but yeah, I agree. It's another big or it's a forward at this point. Even if it's
Patrick Williams' true shooting percentage this year is 51. He's shooting 35% from the field, 37% or 37% from the field, 35% from 3. So I mean, I guess he can kind of shoot the 3.
Here's the bottom line, though. And I this is kind of a bigger conversation for a different time. But actually, I think I can fit it into the next 10 games thing. Something I want to see. So let's jump to looking at this very, very big stretch of games, not only because of the point that it comes in the season, but a murderer's row, all Western Conference opponents, a lot of national TV, big games that they need to win. What do we expect coming up next? Closing out the show here. Don't forget to sign up for the Locked On Suns Daily Newsletter if you haven't. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, type your email address in, free content straight to your inbox. Stay up to date with the show, with the Suns, and with the NBA. Even get some fantasy advice cooked in there. Best of all, it's free for you and supports us. All right, Ben. So I'll just say, as I distance myself from Butler will for sure be here. I know you're staying there. I respect the adherence to the take. I think it's better if we are on different sides of it.
I've been too wishy-washy.
I could easily be wrong. So I'm not trying to say. But part of that comes that you got to look at the fact that Bradley Beal is going to be on this team. If I'm right and Butler doesn't come here and they make a smaller trade with Nurkic or Grayson or something, then Beal's going to be on this team. And at least you and I haven't checked in on this in a while, but Beal's just not having a good season. Like we've spent so much time talking about the trade clause, the contract, the benching, this and that. He's not playing well. The Suns with the big 3 on the court are -1 per 100 possessions this season in almost 400 minutes on the court together. If you remember last year, one of the things we were all holding out hope about is those 3 actually played really well when they could actually be on the court together. They just didn't do that often enough, and then obviously it kind of fell apart by the time the playoffs rolled around. But in the regular season, those guys together, it worked. That's part of why they doubled down on it and rolled into this season the way that they did. You throw also that Beal's defense has regressed, and his true shooting is, I think, a tick above league average, but not by much. You could make a very considerable case, even without looking at the money or injuries at all, that Beal has just been a negative player this season. That needs to change if he's going to be on this team for the rest of the season, and they want to do anything.
It's wishful thinking. He is shooting 39% from 3, which has been fine.
And taking a lot, to his credit.
He is taking 5 threes a game. That is the highest he's had over the last couple of seasons. Looks like over the past 5 seasons. So he's buying into everything, but it just I don't know if there's a world where Bradley Beal works, where Kevin Durant or Devin consistently works, or Kevin Durant and Devin Booker aren't there. Like, he doesn't just fit. Broken record, man. Doesn't fit well in this system. I had a fun little victory lap for 3 games where he was coming off the bench and he looked well doing it, but I mean, he looks lifeless out there. It looks like he does, which is why it shocks me. Well, it doesn't shock me because you have to uproot your family and there's a human side to sports, but that's why it shocks me. Is like, I want to go to a winning or not a losing team. And it's like, you're on a losing team, right? Does it really matter at this point? Maybe you could salvage your legacy or whatever, Tobias Harris style, and go to a different team and play well and prove to everyone that the Suns were the issue.
Yes, sure, but
I just
like Tobias Harris could have salvaged his legacy by winning a championship with the Sixers. Beal can salvage his legacy by winning a championship with the Suns, right? Like that is the best way for this to happen.
Be a Hall of Famer.
Sure.
Because everyone gets in the NBA Hall of Fame. Everyone.
Yeah, and he led the league in scoring one year and everything else. But I think that you could make a case that getting the pressure and the distraction off of his back by the trade saga going away could just help. I think that a lot of things mentality-wise for Brad are not working right now, where you see these times where he runs a pick and roll and he just picks the ball up and passes it. He's not even trying to get downhill. Like, watch that over these next few games. Like, he does that a lot. He'll literally, like, it's the definition of going through the motions. He is like, this is what basketball looks like. You know what I mean? And then defensively,
like I think
his team defense has been terrible this season. It just has been. He is not crisp or attentive or energetic the way that he needs to be a part of a good defense. So that's what I'm watching. If this trade distraction goes away, if he's back on the court for a sustained stretch, I would like to see him find what the new role of Bradley Beal is going to be. There's a lot of things he did last year that he's not doing this year. He crashed the offensive glass last season pretty well. He's not doing that. He was a good playmaker. I know he had the ball in his hands more, but his assists have just crashed, like nowhere near where they were last year. And then obviously just the defense, that's about effort and focus and everything. So I think that a lot of those things could get better. We've seen it literally even last season. I think that's step one. But big picture, what are you kind of feeling as the Suns head into a stretch? Minnesota, Golden State, 2 against Portland. Got to win those. But then Oklahoma City.
Have to win those.
Mm-hmm. Utah, home. Got to win that one. But it is a back-to-back leading right into a game against Denver. And then you round out with Memphis, Houston, San Antonio. The San Antonio game is actually after the All-Star break, so we're kind of cheating to call this 10. It's more like 9 and then the All-Star break. But the Memphis Houston at the end of it, also a back-to-back. So it's going to be brutal.
And it's hard to have much confidence because the Suns have beat up on a lot of bad teams. It's a lot of Hornets and Jazz and Wizards, which they took care of business, and they are fixing that issue that we wish we would have saw earlier in the season, like losing to the Brooklyn Nets at home. I mean, if you want to buy me back into the Sun season, like truly buy me back in, and not championship or bust, but like, hey, maybe they can get a little lucky. Someone gets injured and things fall their way. Like maybe I can even buy into that idea. They got to go 8-2. Like that is the only way. Because then you're telling me they're 16-4 through their last 20. They easily would have moved up in the standings, and they would have had to have beaten some of these teams. And it's not like it's like a death row of gauntlet. Minnesota hasn't really been great this year. The Warriors haven't been great this year. The Blazers, but these are all, it's like a tier 2 outside of like the Thunder and the Nuggets and stuff. Like that's what it kind of feels like. So
that
I expect them to go 5-5, but I want them to go 8-2.
There's 3 you just should win, right? 2 Portland, 1 Utah.
Why'd you say that? Why did you say that?
Well, I mean,
now we're definitely losing.
Pretty close to make or break, so I don't care about jinxing. Like, if my jinx is having an impact at this point, like they got bigger issues on their hands. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. They got to win those 3 games. That one against Oklahoma City on the 5th is going to be huge because if they can be healthy for that game, and I would imagine that, I would think whatever trade they're going to make will probably have happened by then. Maybe not. It's not the deadline's technically the next day, but we'll see. That will be a huge test. And I'm telling you right now, like, I don't think they're going to win that game because I think the Thunder just have the Suns' number. But how bad is it? Like, are you competitive? Is it close? Do you just look overmatched physically and get run off the court, which we kind of saw at times last year and then earlier this season? Or is it something where it's like either you win it surprisingly or you at least are competitive and we can kind of make ourselves feel better? That's the one of all these that I'm circling.
Chet still won't be there, so it'll still be the Hartenstein show for the Thunder. But I mean, I'm circling that game too because we'll be there. I'm sorry, we won't be there. That's in Oklahoma. I
You'll
just
be pretty
can't get my
close in
hopes
New
up.
Orleans for the Super Bowl. You want to drive over, go catch Suns Thunder, get a rental car.
Well, I didn't realize that geographically those are closer than Arizona and Oklahoma. But yeah, you mean you. Side note, super pissed off that next week I'll be in New Orleans and I'll be doing the show from New Orleans with you. That there's not a single Pelicans game on that entire week there. I wanted to go see a $5 game and just cross another arena off my checklist. That's not happening. Anyways, to close it out, they need to go 8-2. I expect them to go 5-5. And I expect them, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. This is just what they've showed me. I expect them to lose one of the Trailblazers games. They'll probably beat the Jazz. I don't feel great about the Nuggets, and I don't feel great about the Thunder. So that's already 3 losses in my brain. I don't want that to be the case, but if they want to just flip things around, whatever, 7-2 over their next 9. I need to see something.
Yeah, you got to prove it.
I
hate to end on a bad note too, but just to put it in context, the Suns right now are, I think, 12th in offense and like 24th in defense. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow, subscribe if you haven't already. Ben dropped out for internet reasons. I will finish the show here. We are here for you every single day. We'll have a recap show for you after the Suns versus Wolves game on Wednesday night from Footprint Center. More rumors and reports and reactions and mess of trades on Thursday into Friday. Enjoy the Suns-Wolves game, and we'll talk to you afterward.